This is Logan Sekulow. Records have revealed Joe Biden's secret identity with dealings with Ukraine.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. We'll be taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110. I'm sure a lot of you clicked on seeing that title and go, what are they talking about today? What kind of secret identity could President Biden have in terms of Ukraine? And here's what happened. Will, maybe you can give us a little bit of just a background of these records that were released and how they got there, and we can get into what we found out, which is a secret email address that seems to be really only used. It was a secret email address. Not that that's unheard of for someone of that stature, being a vice president at the time, to have a pseudonym or an alias. But it seems like it was only utilized, or mainly utilized, to deal with two things: Ukraine, and specifically CC'd, of course, Hunter Biden.
That's right. The chairman of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, James Comer, has sent a letter to the National Archives, and they are requesting to further their oversight work some documents that are held by the National Archives under the Presidential Records Act. And so what we have here are a tranche of email messages to and or from Vice President Biden and Hunter Biden related to Burisma and Ukraine. Those are published actually on the National Archives website, but there's a lot of redactions. And so what the Oversight Committee is wanting to do is to get in there and see what the details of these emails and messages are. One example that they provide is an email bearing the subject, quote, Friday schedule card, which was withheld of what the information there is. But attached to the email is a document that indicates on 9 a.m. of May 27, 2016, Vice President Biden took a call with the president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. And this document was not sent to an email address that is like vp@whitehouse.gov, which probably isn't one he would use for that type of thing anyways.
That's a little bit easy to figure out.
But it was sent to Robert L. Peters. That's a pseudonym the committee has identified as then Vice President Biden. Additionally, the committee questions why then Vice President's son, Hunter Biden, and only Hunter Biden, was copied on this email to Vice President Biden. So essentially, they're looking into these things where, your schedule when you're talking to the president of Ukraine, the only person we're going to CC on this, we're sending it to Robert L. Peters, but we are CCing Hunter Biden. A lot of eyebrows are being raised over at the Oversight Committee about this.
We have the documents about this. We will actually go through them probably coming up in the next segment. So we'll go through that and really explain to you what the findings were. We're also taking your phone calls at 1-800-684-3110. And we're going to be joined a little bit later by Mike Pompeo and by Rick Grinnell. So it's going to be a packed show. We're excited to have you on this Friday. We're also going to talk a little bit more about some of the news that have come out of the pro-life front, and also some situations involving aid to the Palestinian Authority. And we're going to break down a lot of different topics here today. But we're starting with this one because we know these are the kind of things you want to hear from us, especially when news breaks. I'm going to encourage you right now, though, as we head into break. Number one, if you're listening right now, share this with your friends. You know, if you're on social media, Facebook, click share. If you're on YouTube or you're on Rumble, just do whatever their preferred thing is. So like or thumbs up, subscribe, and follow. Those are ways you can really help us. Obviously, we are still in the middle of our life and liberty drive, and we can't do that. We can't do this work without you and your financial support. So right now, you told us the issues that you were concerned the most were liberty and protecting life and protecting the unborn. There was some news that came out. We discussed it a little bit yesterday. Federal appeals court just overturned the radical expansion of the abortion pills. And that was something that we had really discussed pretty much at length. We'll go over that more and more. We are actively fighting at the ACLJ to defend innocent babies and the unborn and protect life at all costs from all levels, from unborn, born, through birth. And right now, every gift is doubled. So dollar for dollar, uphold pro-life laws and donate today. You can do that by going to aclj.org. We're going to break down that a little bit more later on. You probably got an email this morning. If you're an ACLJ supporter, you got an email this morning that really breaks down that even more specifically. So go find that in your inbox and donate today to the Life and Liberty Drive. We're over halfway through it. We could use your help.
James Comer demanding that the National Archives hand over unredacted emails from then Vice President Biden using a pseudonym and copying in at times only his son Hunter.
This does not look good for Joe Biden, who's now president, or should I say, Robert Peters.
Here's what the committee is specifically requesting in that letter from Chairman Comer to the head of the National Archives. Attached to this email and made available on the NARA website is a document that indicates at 9 a.m. on May 27, 2016, Vice President Biden took a call with the president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. It is concerning to the committee, however, that this document was sent to Robert L. Peters, a pseudonym the committee has identified as then Vice President.
Hunter's business account was included on a government email to Robert L. Peters about an upcoming Biden phone call with Ukraine's president. Quote, boss 8:45 a.m. prep for phone call with Poroshenko, the president at the time. And Hunter Biden was the only person CC'd on the email.
One reason that Hunter was CC'd on those emails where Joe Biden was using a fake name is so Hunter could prove to the Ukrainian oligarch, look, help is on the way.
I have never heard of an elected official, certainly at that level, using those names other than to deceive people. To do that for official business or to enrich his own family, which is, one of the allegations that the committee's looking at, is highly suspicious.
Here we see now evidence that shows Joe Biden didn't have a wall between the government and his son's shady business dealings. He was copying him on foreign policy to let him know ahead of time, help is on the way. We're going to go in there and we're going to fire that prosecutor who's trying to bust you for corruption, son.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We'll just reset this a bit, slow it down a little for you, and tell you why this is important. As you may hear it, just go, I don't really get the big deal. Of course, the vice president was probably using a fake name with a hotel or a fake name at on an email address. Well, why wouldn't he? This is for safety, national security. But it seems, Will, that this is not a uncommon thing when it comes to elected officials or appointed officials, for that matter, using these sort of pseudonyms or fake email addresses and names really to potentially avoid stuff getting released. So
right.
When it comes to, obviously, the Freedom of Information Act and us being able to get things, it's a lot harder when you're not being transparent on government records.
Right. If you don't know to look for, in this case, Robert L. Peters, if you're the Oversight Committee, or if you're someone filing a Freedom of Information Act request.
Not even just us, not even like an organization like the ACLJ. You're talking about even the Oversight Committee, people within the government themselves.
Right. That is their official function. The Congress has oversight over the executive branch. So if these things are done for the purpose to obscure what is going on and to hinder the job of oversight, then that's a real problem. And then Congress needs to act to remedy that in many ways. But this isn't new. When we see a highly either elected or appointed position within the government, specifically within some Democratic administrations.
We need to go back in time a little bit and explain how we've been involved in this before.
So the ACLJ back in 2016, when we were highly concerned about the unusual nature of then Attorney General Loretta Lynch having a secret meeting on the tarmac in Arizona with Bill Clinton, just very short time period before James Comey ended that investigation, did his long speech about all the things that Hillary Clinton had done wrong.
Yeah, but before saying, but she did all these horrible things, but sorry, nothing's going to happen.
Right. The Attorney General had a secret meeting on a tarmac with Bill Clinton. Well, what we did was filed a Freedom of Information Act request to try to see what kind of messaging and internal communications were going on back then.
Right.
And we discovered something highly unusual, and that was some of the emails that were going to the Attorney General saying things like, AG Lynch, please see below all the TV clips from night. As you can see, they're still rolling in. We're going to send an updated version. These are all people reporting on the secret meeting. But it's addressed not to Attorney General Loretta Lynch. It's addressed to Elizabeth Carlisle. And then later, there's another email.
Her
pseudonym.
Yeah.
There's another email that says, thanks to all who worked on this. AG, signed by the Attorney General. That email comes from Elizabeth Carlisle. Now, that opens up a whole new world when you're filing FOIA requests, because not only are you looking for the communications from the Attorney General on a tarmac meeting, but now you have to start including things like, we need communications from your department from Elizabeth Carlisle.
Yeah, anytime
you never
someone
thought.
signed an email AG or VP or whatever else they could have potentially used.
So that's where it raises the questions. Was the Attorney General in that case using Elizabeth Carlisle to obscure the role of FOIA, obscure the role of oversight by Congress? And that was an issue we had back then. So you take what we've learned and how people from the Obama administration, of which Joe Biden was a part of at the time that these emails were going around, it was the same practice. Was this a culture of the Obama administration at the time to obscure oversight, to obscure FOIA practice, getting records, getting the things that the public and transparency of the public needs by using a pseudonym to further things that they didn't want the public to know about?
Right, and these are a little bit different even because it's not only stuff they don't want the public to get involved in. This specific instance in conversation was with the president of Ukraine and, of course, had to do with Burisma. Maybe we can break that down a little bit. Of course, as I said, who is CC'd? The only person CC'd on these emails other than Robert Peters, which is, that was at the time Vice President Biden's fake name, if you will, was, of course, Hunter Biden. And, of course, these were all found released by the archives and retrieved from the Hunter laptop, is where these were all found.
Right. And
so again, keeping that theory alive, not just something that was used for some of the issues we know that have been found in the laptop. These are some big ones.
And what also brings up more questions, something that we've pointed to a long time, is that Joe Biden went to Ukraine and put pressure on Poroshenko to fire the prosecutor that was looking at corruption in Burisma. Yeah. And so when you see that this is dated on May 27th, that it has to do with the a phone call with the president of Ukraine and Hunter Biden is CC'd, when you hear the statement of what Joe Biden bragged about, he bragged about it when he was out of office. This is Bite 5.
Back in 2018. So just to give you guys if it seems very clear, it's also because it's from 6 years ago. It's
right.
More than that.
So here's what he decided to brag about when he went to go put pressure on Poroshenko in Ukraine.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
I forgot how weird that statement was. And just that weird braggadocious moment of using his influence in a way that I don't know if a lot of people really agree with.
Right. And what this does further now, as the Oversight Committee continues to investigate this, this is where what the Speaker of the House had brought up a few weeks back about the potential of needing an impeachment inquiry to get to the bottom of some of this alleged corruption, appearance of corruption. And if places like the National Archives aren't giving the Congress the documents and records they need, which they are entitled to under oversight function. They even say in this letter, the committee is concerned that foreign nationals have sought access and influence by engaging in lucrative business relationships with high-profile political figures, immediate family members, including members of the Biden family. If they are obstructing their constitutionally mandated oversight function, then that's where you start getting into an impeachment inquiry grounds, and then they have a lot more power as well.
Yeah, all of a sudden that conversation gets a lot more real. And look, we've been someone who said you shouldn't trivialize impeachment, but unfortunately it's kind of already gotten there with the last go-round, President Trump's impeachments. So does this feel like something you could at least have the conversation about? Sure. Will it go all the way through? Will you convicted? Look, I don't think the votes are there right now, but you could at least put them through a not-so-fun process. We're going to take some phone calls on this, 1-800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110, and we're going to hear from former Director of National Intelligence, Rick Grinnell, coming up in the next segment. We actually have a bite, actually, from John Radcliffe, another former DNI, from Fox News just from today. And you can hear a little bit what his thoughts are. I think this is a good setup to the next part of this conversation. This is Bite 17. Oh, sorry.
One of those emails that went out was a communication not by Robert Peters, but by Joe Biden as in his official capacity as the vice president about a call with the president of Ukraine. And the only person copied on that, the only one copied on that, was Hunter Biden. Now, you ask yourself why. Well, we now know that there's a confidential human source that said there were 10 million reasons why they would be talking about conversations with the Ukrainian president and firing the Burisma prosecutor.
So there you go. That's set up from John Radcliffe. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to really deep dive in this because I'm sure, as you can imagine, those who listen to this show, Rick Grinnell's got something to say. I feel like he's got a lot probably on his mind in terms of this situation, Will.
That's right. And the fact that he also held the same position, he was acting director of DNI before John Ratcliffe, I feel like he has seen a lot of the corruption on the inside of the government and knows exactly where to go.
He's seen a lot of stuff we can only dream of seeing. So, you know, it does kind of drive me crazy that we're this close to him. And I'm like, just tell me about.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one thing you want to know.
The aliens.
It's the aliens.
I want to know about the aliens.
That's it.
I mean, there's maybe three things. That's number one.
I'm curious what the other two are.
All right,
we'll talk offline.
Off air. Yeah. I can't talk about that. You can email me at Robert Peters at, you can find my that's my alien name.
Not your alias name.
No,
it's your alien name.
No, it's when I go online and just talk about aliens.
That's fair.
E.T. Peters is who I am. Give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. I want to take this last minute, as I will throughout this show, to tell you about our Life and Liberty Drive. We created this new Life and Liberty Drive because you told us the two issues that matter you the most. Life, protecting life, and religious liberty. And you heard, as I said in the last segment, there has been some news in the world of the pro-life movement, whether that is the email you got today, potentially if you're an ACLJ supporter already, where you saw the appeals court overturn Biden's radical expansion of abortion pills, trying to make the post office deliver this deadly drug and not be something mandated or not even something prescribed by a doctor. So we filed 4 amicus briefs in this groundbreaking case supporting the injunction. Of course, the Biden administration appealed, and our legal team is preparing our 5th brief to stop the abortion by mail plan, and this time at, of course, the Supreme Court of the United States. The ACLJ is actively fighting to defend innocent babies and shut down Biden's radical expansion. That is why we did this Life and Liberty Drive. It's all about not only you, it's all about making sure that your rights are protected and you can be involved. You can be a part of it. Not just, you hear from us talking about this. We get involved in the courtrooms. We get involved in the media. We can't do it without your support. Every gift will be doubled, dollar for dollar. You uphold your pro-life laws, help save babies. Donate today at aclj.org. And also in terms of religious freedom, we got another story that's going to blow your mind of what's happening in the schools. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born.
If you look back at the whole history of the abortion movement, it is tied in with Margaret Sanger, grounded in the perception that certain people are either unfit to live or they are unworthy of life.
Life has always been a top issue since our founding. Either the unborn child is a human being or they're not. The science clearly establishes that that unborn child is a person.
When you're fighting for life, when you're fighting for the life of the unborn, you're on the right side of history, you're on the right side of law.
The radical left has been relentless in trying to silence anyone who refuses to worship at the altar of abortion.
We're going to have to flood the coffers of abortion funds. We are not going back.
You have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Roe v. Wade has been overturned, and the question of abortion has been returned to the states.
We celebrated this historic victory at the Supreme Court, but now it's time to put the hammer down and dig even deeper.
This is a fight that is worth fighting for, and it's an issue that is, in our mind, not negotiable. You don't negotiate on life.
We have to step up for the unborn. We've been given this unique opportunity. The battle has really just begun. This is your moment to get in the fight. every tax-deductible gift will be doubled. Join the ACLJ in the fight to keep America free.
Welcome back. We are joined by Rick Grinnell, who's, he's got maybe one of the most beautiful looking Skype setups I've ever seen today. Usually we go to you in like a hotel room somewhere, all around the world. And today, I don't know where you are, but it looks picturesque. So it's a good way to start this conversation. I looked at your Twitter account clearly, or X account, I guess I can say now. I'm sorry.
Sure.
The old habits die hard. But Rick, I'm sure you got a lot to say about this whole Robert Peters situation that has come up when it comes to the world of Joe Biden and, of course, how it's connected with Hunter Biden, how it's connected to Ukraine. It seems like it's checking all the boxes that our audience is interested in.
It's crazy to think about, but the president of the United States, think about that. The president of the United States had a pseudonym. He literally had a fake name in order to get money from foreigners. And that's a little crazy. That is pure corruption. But yet, all of Washington, D.C. has decided to put 91 charges on Donald Trump. Think about that. 91 charges on Donald Trump. But the guy who, while in office, used a pseudonym in order to get foreign money is somehow escaping any type of charges, any type of indictments. Washington, D.C. is totally corrupt. The rest of us see it. I've been saying this, Logan, is that if the Democrats had just gone after Donald Trump with one charge or one indictment and really concentrated on something, then I think maybe you could cause some problems. But when you do it 91 times, the rest of us out here in America say, we think that's politics and we think you're just trying to stop the guy that can beat you from running against you.
Start saying, when are we going to have this trial? I don't know. The day before Super Tuesday. Let's figure that out. When you see all of those pieces start to come together, I think for the American people, I've tried to explain this in our first segments here, I don't think anyone would be surprised if a president or a vice president had an alias. That's doesn't feel like any sort of big stretch of the imagination, but it feels like from what they've uncovered, it is the point of this alias. And that was not to just protect generally the president, the vice president. They're able to email about whatever. It always seems to come back to two things, and that is some situation in Ukraine, and specifically with Burisma and Hunter Biden.
Look, for me, it's one thing to have an alias so that you can email your friends and, not have something forwarded when you're a very famous person. It's quite another to do it for a bank account and to somehow hide the money. And that's what we're talking about here. Don't forget that 4 weeks before the 2020 election, we had 51 individuals sign a letter saying, don't look at that Hunter Biden laptop because it's Russian disinformation. That Hunter Biden laptop was filled with proof of corruption. And so I think that was election interference in 2020. I think that we've got a system in D.C. where the media absolutely don't want to help uncover scandals for the Democrats. But we all know this. We all know this when you're outside of D.C. The only people that don't realize that they've overreached and that they're helping Donald Trump are all of those corrupt individuals in Washington, D.C.
Rick, you bring up that the media doesn't want to acknowledge it, and you even tweeted yesterday that CNN viewers have no idea who Robert L. Peters is. As we go into an election year, and we know that the Speaker of the House has alluded to a potential impeachment inquiry, but we know with the Senate that that's not going to lead to a conviction if there is indeed an impeachment. But the fact that CNN viewers have no idea who Robert L. Peters is, and they aren't going to be told by CNN, how important is it to tell people, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen that Joe Biden was using this alias, and it has a lot to do with Ukraine and Hunter Biden?
Well, it's such a great point because, when you think about the media, we have a responsibility, the rest of us, Americans, to tell this story. And so I would say that the weapon that we have, which is social media, going around the filters of editors at the New York Times or CNN, we should be sharing this information. Don't ever assume that people within your sphere somehow know about this, Robert L. Peters pseudonym. We need to be sharing this. If you're hearing us, share ACLJ, share these interviews, go out on social media and share, because that goes around the media. And let me finish by saying CNN is in the tank. There's not that many viewers. We probably have more viewers here at ACLJ than they do during the day at CNN. And so don't be discouraged that New York Times, Washington Post, which, by the way, they have paywalls. You got to pay to get that crappy news. No one that I know is doing that. I certainly don't pay for it. So share this information directly with your friends and relatives.
I certainly don't. I will protest the paywall many times. So much so that Will send me articles. Will you may be the one.
But I have to for work because
sure.
I have to read it so you don't have to.
And
That's
you send it to me,
adage,
and
right?
I just go, no, I'm not doing it. I will not. I've gotten emails that are like, they're like, just don't you, it's 99 cents for the year. Will you please do this? And I'm like, out of principle, I am like, no. I will not do it. Today I got a breaking news headline. I'm like, I will find it on one of the 400 other websites that carries that I don't have to pay for. It's actually, if I'm being honest with you, our audience here, it's something I take very seriously, and the fact that we put out almost all of our content on our website, on every social media platform. Almost all of it is available at no cost. And that is one of the things we do here. I'm very much an advocate for getting the message out wherever people are, except for TikTok, as Rick said, don't do that. So I don't do that. But other than that, I try to go everywhere we are, everywhere that people are, because that is how you actually change minds. That's actually how you change hearts, is to be where people are, not behind a $2 whether you're conservative or Democrat, or liberal, by the way, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, conservative, liberal, Christian, or an atheist. If you put everything, and majority of your content gets stuck behind these paywalls, inevitably, no one sees it. You just create a small echo chamber where you all can high-five each other, but it doesn't actually move the ball forward at all. And I've seen that time and time again. Sure, there's special projects, books, movies, those things. That, of course, you got to recoup your costs. But when it comes to getting the news out there, spreading, we just have all these brand new articles that go up today. We're going to talk about that in the next half hour. All of that content's available at aclj.org or on all our social media platforms at no additional cost. And we obviously could not do that without your financial support, but it's not required to get the information.
And that's right. And we put up interviews like with you, Rick, like this. You can get it.
Sorry, you triggered
for free.
me, Rick.
Yeah,
sorry. It makes me mad. It's not that it's not me trying to be holier than the other people in our sort of space. But I do think it's important to, especially when you're headed to an election year. And I can say, I feel like last time, and maybe even honestly, just in general, that sort of the Democrat strategists seem to understand some of that when it comes to getting the word out there, using all tools you can and not getting stuck in your ways, because that's the way we've always done it. And Rick, I know you've been a proponent of that as well. It's just sort of embracing, whether that's laws, election laws, or whatever they can be, is to just utilize the tools that you have.
Yeah, what I do is aclj.org. I love Reels on Instagram that tell stories. And I go to the California Globe, which is californiaglobe.com. All of that center-right sourcing that you can create on Reels, and really, honestly, get educated without having to pay any of those paywalls.
Rick, I appreciate you coming. I know I got a little sidetracked there from all of this, but you got me going, because I think that is something that's important. As we're in the middle of our Life and Liberty Drive, that is also really what is key, is the fact that we need your financial support to be able to provide this content, for you then to be able to share it at no cost to your friends. Because as soon as your friend, like Will over here, sends me an article that's behind a $2 paywall even, I go, yeah, hard pass. Send me a screenshot or something. So support the work of the ACLJ right now at aclj.org. Second half hour coming up right now.
Hi, this is Jay Sekulow. You've spoken and we've heard you loud and clear. That's why this month we're doing something big. We're proud to announce our brand new ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive. Our legal teams will be focusing on the issues that you've told us matter the most to you: life and religious liberty. This month, we're redoubling our efforts to beat back the radical left's attacks on your constitutional religious freedoms and to defend the sanctity of human life. Life and liberty are the cornerstones of our great nation, but they're not guaranteed. When the values we hold dear are under attack from within, it's up to all of us to take a stand or risk losing them forever. This is not just a call to fund our legal battles. This is your moment to get in the fight. Every tax-deductible gift you give will be doubled, dollar for dollar, through the ACLJ Life and Liberty Drive. and help us fight to literally save lives. Go to aclj.org right now and join us in the fight.
Keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome back to Sekulow. Second half hour coming up. Mike Pompeo joining us in the next segment of the broadcast. But we wanted to start things off with some phone calls. If you've heard the first half hour, we were talking about Joe Biden's secret identity that was revealed, secret email addresses he was using when dealing with Ukraine and with his son, Hunter. We discussed that. Let's go ahead and take some calls, some of them related to that. Let's go first to Vera, who's calling in Texas on line 2, watching on Rumble, one of our favorite platforms, free speech platform of Rumble. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am Hispanic American, and my entire family supports President Trump. I am really disgusted by the Republicans not doing anything. I know that the committee is getting all their evidence, but as far as the ones that are elected, they have not come out the way they should on this, and we are just disgusted by it.
I think it's okay to share that opinion, Vera. I think that that's fine if that's how you feel. If you feel that your elected officials in your area, I don't know specifically which area you are or anything like that, so I don't want to speak for them specifically, but let them know. Let them know that that's what you want. They are your elected officials. If not, guess what you can do? You can vote them out and replace them. That's part of the good part of our system here is that they have to listen to you at some point.
Right, and I do feel like there are members of the Republican Party that have been very outspoken about what they see as an overreach by especially the prosecutor in Georgia or some of these attacks that are going on towards President Trump. The problem is that, especially in a state case, there's not a ton Congress can do at that point. If they are local, they could maybe try to talk with their own state legislature or the governor and try to have conversations in that matter about maybe reform. But as far as the federal side, they are doing oversight into the special counsels, and especially as it relates to both Hunter Biden and Jack Smith. There are members of committees, especially in the House of Representatives, that are looking into what is going on, if it's on the up and up, and honestly, what Merrick Garland is doing heading this Department of Justice, where we're seeing so much targeting of Christians, targeting of conservatives, targeting of President Trump coming out of that DOJ, and it's not an equal justice system right now. We are seeing two tiers of justice. If you are on the left and you are saying the things that the Democrat Party, the DNC, has rubber stamped to approve, then you're going to be okay, is what it appears. But if you are a Christian or if you are a conservative or if you are President Trump, they're coming after you. It's really what it seems like.
All right, let's go ahead. I agree. Let's take another phone call before we get to the next segment. Give us a call, by the way. Next segment, we're on Mike Pompeo, and then I'm going to take as many calls as we can. So if you got a call related to this question or this topic or any topics we've talked about this week, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. John is calling from California on line 1. Listen on the radio. So, John, welcome.
How you doing? Hey, I just have a quick question. How come the Supreme Court can't order all these different agencies to send the oversight committee unredacted documents? And I'll listen off air.
Okay, John. Well, you got something.
Well, really, I mean, we have three co-equal branches of government, and the oversight is done by the Congress. And
just to clarify for John, that's not necessarily where the Supreme Court would get involved.
Right.
There are other people that can get involved, but that's not necessarily there yet.
Exactly. So it's not in the court system. Now, if there were angles that could be litigated, then it would be introduced into the court system. But it actually isn't something we would really want the Supreme Court just to start jumping in and getting into disputes between the executive and the, because you know what happens?
One way, it'll go happen again.
Exactly.
And that's what we threatened. We said what happened with impeachment. We said, if you start doing this, Democrats, if you start saying that this is an impeachable offense, guess what's going to happen? You have now trivialized impeachment, or you've made it a much, much less of an issue. So it's going to happen to pretty much every president from here on out. And what are we seeing right now? We are seeing what would be, if the last time was an impeachable offense for President Trump, we are seeing this happen again now for President Biden. And you know what? They did it. It's going to happen again. Now it's going to happen to them. It's going to flip-flop back and forth. Sadly, that's the country we live in. We're going to take your calls in the third segment. Not this next segment. We got Mike Pompeo coming up. But after that, join us, aclj.org.
The ACLJ has a long and distinguished history in fighting for liberty.
At the ACLJ, this is our number one issue. It's why we're founded.
It started with Jews for Jesus and their ability to engage in evangelism. Then it became whether students in high school could start Bible studies and Christian fellowship organizations and events like See You at the Pole. That kind of set us up as the religious liberty team.
Conservative groups were targeted by the IRS.
Remember when we went after the IRS? We broke them after 3 years of pulverizing them in court.
The Party of Tolerance just viciously attacked two peaceful pro-life advocates.
Not of a pedestrian who attacked him, but a pro-abortion extremist.
A former U.S. Navy chief and part-time employee who was forced to resign his position because he wouldn't remove bumper stickers from his personal vehicle that were supportive of President Trump. We will be representing FBI Special Agent Garrett O'Boyle. He was the FBI agent who blew the whistle on the FBI targeting conservatives. And what did the FBI do to him? Suspended him without pay.
Put this guy and his family in a homeless situation.
They were thrown out for wearing hats that had a pro-life message on them.
Legal action is imminent. We've already put them on notice.
We represent the parents and a 15-year-old female student who was forced to perform a profanity-laced, sexually explicit, obscene monologue as a graded assignment.
If you don't want me to read it to you, what was that like for my 15-year-old daughter?
The responsibility of the ACLJ is to make Americans aware of attacks on our freedom. We fight for the liberties and freedoms that make this country great. Join us in our Life and Liberty Drive to stand with us in the fight.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We are joined now by Secretary Mike Pompeo, who is the Senior Counsel for Global Affairs at the ACLJ. And we are really going to dive in a little bit. We're going to shift our topic a little bit. You've heard a lot about what was going on in the Biden administration in terms of some of these revealed documents because of that email address that came out. But we're going to move to issues that are very important to our ACLJ supporters. And this came out of the Washington Free Beacon. They had obtained some documents from the State Department showing that the Biden administration, even they had concerns that there was a high risk in resuming aid to the Palestinian government and that would potentially benefit Hamas. And what did they do about it? They proceeded and they decided to move forward anyway with this. I think for you, Secretary Pompeo, I just want to start with, what does that tell you about the priorities of this administration when it does seem like there were people involved that knew that money could get into the wrong hands, but decided maybe it's from a political perspective, this is still the right thing to do? I think we're having an audio glitch here. I'm sorry, Secretary Pompeo. Just give us a second. Let me know when he's ready, and we'll go back to him with that answer. There we go. We got you now. Go ahead.
Good. Well, good afternoon. Look, you asked the question precisely right. It's common sense, and it sounds like the intelligence community told the Biden administration that if you give money to the Palestinian Authority leadership, it is going to end up in the hands of terrorists, whether that's Hezbollah or Hamas, as they talked about in these intelligence reports, as the Washington Post reported. Everyone knows it's common sense. This stuff's fungible. It's going to end up in the hands of people who are going to do really bad things. What it tells you is the Biden administration and its relationship with Israel is incredibly strained, that the Biden administration has prioritized cutting a deal with the Iranians, who in the end underwrite most of the bad actions of Hamas, most of the bad actions of the Palestinian Authority and Hezbollah. And they decided, well, it's worth it. It's worth the candle. We believe that the relationship with Iran outranks our relationship with Israel. And that's really dangerous for the American people and for those of us of every faith, every Abrahamic faith, Christians, Jews, even the Gulf Arab Muslims. They understand the risk from that kind of funding of terrorists is really dangerous.
Right. I think that's something we maybe need to specify for our audience that maybe just don't understand because they don't get involved in some of these matters. But when our administration, current administration, the Biden administration is drawing attention saying, we know this could benefit Hamas. Obviously, we know why that could endanger Israel, but that also by default, seeing on our relationship, honestly, as you said, would endanger Americans as well.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And it's not just Americans that are traveling in the region, but as you begin to underwrite this terrorism, they build their networks. We know this. It seems like ancient history for some, for young people who weren't even in school or alive at 9/11.
I know,
20 some years ago now. It's this exact kind of absence of caution with respect to providing money to bad guys that creates the risk here in our homeland as well. We know this. The Palestinian Authority, the governing body inside of Judea and Samaria, is connected deeply at the hip to Hamas and therefore to the regime in Iran. And so any money that goes to them, even if you think you're going to run it through some third-party organization, what we now know is the Biden team knows that's not possible. It's not true. We certainly experienced that. Well, the reason we in the Trump administration cut off funding to UNRWA, to the Palestinian organization, was because we knew that money would flow straight from UNRWA into bad hands, and these guys just seem not to care.
And specifically, when you were Secretary of State, you prioritized peace in the Middle East and advanced that goal with the historic Abraham Accords, but you also defunded the Palestinian Authority. And how important for the peace process itself was it to stop propping up the PA?
Yeah, look, it's a central element of building out Middle East peace, that you don't underwrite terrorists. That's the basic rule. If you said, how do you get to the Abraham Accords? We knew we had a friend and partner in the nation of Israel. We knew we could isolate Iran, and that allowed the Gulf Arab states to say, hey, it's just common sense. We want to be partners with Israel as well. But when you are funding the terrorists, when you're funding the Palestinian Authority, the governing body, that's really that really prevents peace and prosperity in the region. Look, this isn't about the Palestinian people. Our proposals wanted to make life better for them as well, build out roads, bridges, sanitation inside of Judea and Samaria. But you can't do it by giving Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, the leadership of an organization that has rejected peace for decades. You can't give them money and have any prayer of building out a prosperous, more stable Middle East and taking down risk for the American people as a result of that.
You bring that up, and I think that's something that's sort of a false narrative that I feel like has been being preached my entire life from CNN and from more of the liberal-leaning news, which is this idea that there isn't humanitarian efforts going in to support the Palestinian people. There is always that happening in terms of the way Israel interacts with that community. But you're right. It's the government. It's government oppression that's happening. And a lot of times it is oppression of their own people. We've seen that time and time again. But the spin is always the other way around, which is that, Israel is doing this and they want to hold them down in any sort of, in not help at all. And it's just simply not the case. Israel is that sort of Western feel that you can get anywhere in the Middle East.
Yeah. No, you got it right. Look, this has been a progressive left-wing, frankly, anti-Zionist for sure, and in some cases anti-Semitic theme for an awfully long time, is that those of us who are friends, partners, allies with the nation of Israel don't want good things for the people living in Judea and Samaria, well, of whatever faith they may be. Yeah. And it's just false. It's just so fundamentally false. And the central element that comes along that is, gosh, and if you can't make peace with them, there's no way to build peace in the region. You have to, and Secretary Kerry famously said, if you don't make peace with the Palestinians, there'll be war in the region. Well, we proved that that's not true. That narrative, that progressive left-wing narrative, is just fundamentally counterfactual.
Right.
And so we want good things for the Palestinians too. We just need their leadership to stop hurting them, oppressing them, and stealing their money.
I think that's absolutely right. And you actually have a new article up at aclj.org called The Path to Peace and Prosperity in the Middle East, where you write about not only the Abraham Accords and everything that happened with there. And people that aren't involved and don't understand the Middle East or really haven't spent the time there, they really don't understand the impact that has had. And you really should educate yourself. I know you have also a new, I've seen the ad now a million times, a new Fathom event coming to theaters soon, kind of walking through that route in Israel and everything that happens there. And I think for people, that will be an eye-opening experience. Again, you didn't tell us to promote that. I just have seen it. And I know that is coming. But you have this new article, and I guess a lot of people, while watching this broadcast, they heard our first few segments, they now hear this, and they go, under a Biden administration, can what you wrote about the article, Path to Peace and Prosperity, can that still happen? We've had Israel have great relationships with presidents on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. It just doesn't seem like it fits the narrative anymore.
I think it still can. I pray that it still can. I'm hopeful that every Gulf state will come to recognize Israel's rightful place, that it's the proper Jewish homeland. They'll see that it's in their best security and economic interest to stabilize their relationship, to normalize their relationship with Israel. What the problem that the Biden administration has created for them is that, even to this day, they're negotiating with the Iranians, trying to give them now looks like $6 billion to get some American hostages out. We all want those families home, but providing $1.2 billion per hostage sets a market price that'll be really bad for every U.S. person traveling in the region. It's a bad precedent, and it will give money to the Iranians that they will use to foment terror in places like, in places like Tel Aviv, in places like Brussels, in Riyadh, or in Abu Dhabi. This money will be used to foment terror around the world. And we had the right end of the stick on this one. And I hope the Biden administration will come to see it that way as well. This isn't political at all. This is about protecting human dignity everywhere and always, and making life safer for Americans.
Secretary Pompeo, we just have about a minute left here, but I did want to get to this question real quick because President Biden is hosting a summit at Camp David between Japan and South Korea with the goal of cementing a united front towards Beijing. Historically, there have been tensions between Tokyo and Seoul. Do you see what do you see coming out of this summit today?
Well, I hope they come out united for the people of Japan and the people of South Korea, who, you're right, have had lots of struggles over the last decades for a complicated set of reasons. I hope they find this common threat of sufficient seriousness that they realize we've got to grasp arms, hook together, work as a partner, and push back against the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. If we don't get this right, the first people impacted will be the people who are living in the region. And I'm very glad President Biden's calling them together. I hope it's not just platitudes and press conferences. I hope there are real substantive outcomes that deliver better security for America and for Japan and South Korea.
Secretary Pompeo, thank you so much for your time today. I want to spend this last minute here. First, I want to tell you, if you want to give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. I'll take as many calls as I can in the next segment, and that includes you if you want to be on the air, 1-800-684-3110. But I want to take this last minute heading into our final segment to, again, encourage you to be a part of our Life and Liberty Drive. We have created Life and Liberty Drive because you told us the two issues that matter to you the most: protecting life of the unborn and religious liberty. And liberty in general. We've been able to see that now through the works of our FOIA work, or the whistleblowers, or everything you've heard over the last month. This was a wild time, and this has been a wild month. But guess what we've seen? A massive amount of support from all of you getting engaged in joining us in this fight. Not just being a small part of the organization, not just giving a donation, but to actually get involved in a very, very specific way. And that's through our Life and Liberty Drive. Every gift and that is doubled. So if you give, another donor is ready to unlock, and we'll appreciate any support you could at aclj.org. Your call's coming up in the next segment.
Government officials who feel like there is wrongdoing inside our federal government have long been supposed to be protected by whistleblower protection. We now represent Garrett O'Boyle. He was one of the first FBI whistleblowers who came forward earlier this summer to say that their FBI is wrongfully targeting conservatives, pro-life Americans, and parents who are attending school board meetings. He blew the whistle. And then what did the FBI do? They suspended him, moved him across the country, and then took his pay away.
Put this guy and his family in a homeless situation. He's an FBI agent, has served our country well, and he said these words. Take a listen.
But the FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. And we are all examples of that.
This is a guy that was doing his job, investigating cases, and made a whistleblower report under the existing whistleblower guidelines. This is one FBI whistleblower. I will tell you right now, we're already talking to 5 more.
We can represent Garrett O'Boyle in court, and it doesn't cost him a thing. He doesn't have to go and find money or take out loans to hire lawyers. He can get the best attorneys in the world, attorneys who have represented the President of the United States of America before Congress, the impeachment, and the special counsel probe. He gets those attorneys.
43 years of my legal career has been doing what? Changing precedent. It sometimes takes a decade to do it, but we've seen it, including Roe versus Wade, folks. Is it a tough challenge? You bet. Is it an important challenge? There's no doubt. Is it a winnable challenge? Yes. Is it going to take tenacity? You bet. Is it going to take really smart lawyering? Yes. The government is pointing its weaponization right at these agents, and we're going to have to defend them.
Join the ACLJ in the fight to keep America free.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We're going to spend a few minutes here taking your phone calls, and I want to appreciate everyone and thank everyone who has supported us during this Life and Liberty Drive. We have another week of it coming up, and we could obviously use your support. So that's at aclj.org. I did tell you a little bit about a new religious freedom case that came in. We're going to discuss that a little bit. I want to tease it. Maybe we'll discuss it more coming up next week. But we did have a situation, Will, where a student, middle school student, went in, told his friends and told some bullies around him maybe about that they should, repent and become, follow Jesus. That's about the extent of what we know was said. And what happened? The kid gets in school suspension just for sharing about his faith.
That's right. And so the parents actually reached out to the ACLJ, and we have sent off a demand letter, and we are saying that they need to revoke the suspension. They need to clean this from his record and move forward.
This is a week into school.
Yes.
We're not talking about something that happened 6 months ago or a year ago. This is just happening. Most of your kids, if you have kids, have been just gone back to school, if they're even back, only in the last 7 to 10 days.
Right.
So this is wild that we already have these kind of cases coming in.
But our attorneys were able to quickly get a letter to the school explaining why they're wrong on the law, that sharing your faith with fellow students is not indeed a violation of the First Amendment or something you should be punished for in the United States of America. So we were able to get to action really quickly. We are just getting this. This is very quick moving, so our attorneys are going to report to us later, but we are also looking at what kind of legal action, if the school does not comply, that the ACLJ can take on behalf of this family.
Yeah, and that's why we have the Life and Liberty Drive right now, because we can't do this kind of work without your support. Because guess how much we charge them for our legal services? $0. That's what we do here. We provide free legal help if it is within our scope. And by the way, that includes you too. All you have to do is go to aclj.org/help. You'll see what kind of cases we take. You fill out a simple form. Who does that go to? Directly to our legal dispatch group. It goes right to a lawyer, and you'll be connected with them very quickly. That's aclj.org/help. But we can't do that, by the way, because guess what? Lawyers have to get paid. We got to pay them. Got to pay the team. It's not like people are around here working for free. That's not what you want. You want the best of the best. And to do that, we need your support. And that is why we are in the middle of our Life and Liberty Drive, where all gifts are doubled. So go to aclj.org. Let's hit some phone calls before we wrap up for the week. Let's go first to Joe, who's calling in New York, watching on YouTube. Been on hold for a long time, Joe, so I appreciate you holding. You're on the air.
Yeah, thank you guys for everything you're doing. God bless you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
My first question is about Biden. But after hearing Pompeo while I was on hold, I have another question afterwards.
Okay, let's start with one. See if we can get to the second. We got a bunch of calls, but we'll do our best.
All right. With Biden using the false names, could that be considered as government falsifying records, or is there another legal term that could go against them?
Yeah, we're looking into what really could be used. Because as you said, Will, it is a bit to not only use the alias in terms of his own protection, in terms of government.
If he had VP at whitehouse.gov, that wouldn't be a very good email address for a vice president to have.
So you
because
understand
it would be
why they have something separate so they can email. But when it comes to getting the laws for freedom of information really start getting a little skewed there.
And as well with the oversight. So if he had done this specifically for the purpose of obscuring the role of Congress in oversight, one, it may be hard to specifically prove that unless there's an email from that email address that says, hey, use this one so Congress can't get it. I doubt that one exists, but you never know these days. So I think it would have to be something like that. But it can, as we've seen, shine a light on other activity that's highly suspect, to say the least, that oversight is looking at. So I don't know that specifically using the alias in and of itself could violate the law. It also may be a violation of a law that's not a criminal penalty, like just obscuring or of a Presidential Records Act violation within that may not necessarily constitute a criminal act, but it could just be something that has to be corrected. But we will see as this goes on. There's a lot smarter people out there than I am, especially when it comes to the law. And these attorneys and these members of Congress are going after it aggressively, and we're going to see what comes out of it.
All right, let's continue on, try to get to as many of these calls as we can. Let's go to Dwayne, who's calling in Washington, D.C., who is listening on the radio. Dwayne, welcome.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air, Dwayne.
Yeah, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Again, thank you for this opportunity. I was saying that in reflection to Donald Trump, I think that all the attention is going to be taken off of him, and whoever is running for president need to concentrate on the issues that America is having, like security at the borders, the rebuilding the walls, making gas affordable, more cheaper for us here, and do all that.
I think we're all feeling that. I think that the priorities are out of whack, and we couldn't agree with you more. And that's why at the ACLJ, we try to get involved in these in any legal way we can. But yeah, when you go to the pump and you see it's back to, for us, we're not even in the most expensive areas in the world right now in the country, and you're seeing it's $4+ a gallon. You go, okay, no one's talking about this. This is we all accepted that now. And it's really sad to see that kind of thing happen. Obviously, we know the crisis at the border that continues ongoing, and we know that how that shaped up this past summer. Sadly, the American people move on. They get onto a new topic. Shark attacks become more important. So we have to make sure we stay on it.
And also to follow up on that, the gas prices being high and the border being chaotic is part of the Democrat Party's plan. They want gas prices to be so painful that you want to go to green energy. They want the border to be porous. These are the party platforms to some degree. There's a reason that that these things are happening, and it's not a conspiracy theory, or it's differences in policy. And if your vision of what you think America needs to be, or what is in the rule of law and things of that nature, then there is not a path within people's policies that they're putting forward which call for elimination of use of fossil fuels, which call for a porous open border. And that is part of the problem that we're seeing right now.
For sure. Let's go to Barbara in Maryland. Hey, Barbara's going to be the last call of the day, so appreciate the others that are on hold. Unfortunately, we'll get to you next week. Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, praise the Lord. God is wonderful. I appreciate y'all. The radio station y'all talking about is so true. About Biden doing all that stuff, and they don't want Trump to run for president no more. But all I say, we got to continue to pray, because Jesus is going to block all the demonic spirit that's trying to come against his people. That's all I want to say. I just love you all, and just stay encouraged.
Barbara, I couldn't think of a better way to end the week. I really appreciate that. That really touches me, and I really do appreciate that. That's something that we try to exude here as well. The hope is not lost. This is not something we just sit here and complain. You've got a great, amazing legal team here, and we have a much more powerful God. And you can be involved as well. Go to aclj.org. And honestly, right now, one of the things we have during this Life and Liberty Drive is also a free prayer guide. And we've seen such massive response to that. All of you, thousands, tens of thousands of you downloading that prayer guide. And I'd say, as much as we appreciate the financial support, we appreciate the prayer guide, or the prayer support just as much, if not a lot more. We really could use it. So go to aclj.org/pray, and you can get that free prayer guide right now. It'll go straight to your inbox. It's a digital download, and it really walks you through all the different ways you can pray for our organization, all the issues, our top issues, and everything that we do here. So I couldn't think of a better way to end it, and I really appreciate your call. I do want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ right now as we end the third week of the Life and Liberty Drive, because you told us what the two issues were that were as important to you more than ever. You may have gotten that text message that said rank them for us. You may have gotten an email that really informed us. And we read all of your comments. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube or Rumble, we are there. We have a social media team as well as us. We go through these comments and read them because we want to respond to what you want us to do. You're in control. So we encourage you to go to aclj.org, where your gift is doubled right now. So donate today. We appreciate it. We'll be back Monday with more Sekulow.